right, let's talk about it. Is Nick Suzuki an elite center? This was a interesting video I saw pop up in my recommended from TSN. And before kind of going into the video, I just kind of want to give my honest opinion when it comes to Suzuki. I don't think he's really appreciated for how good of a player and good of a two-way center he is. And while, sure, maybe he's not a superstar level player, he is a center that any team would love to have. My own team, I wish I had a guy like Nick Suzuki for the Boston Bruins. And I think with Montreal, what they're currently building, they're going to be a damn good team and could possibly slip into the playoffs this season. I think, all in all, Nick Suzuki is a very good center. And in my personal opinion, the Canadiens are going to be a team that's going to be a problem in the Eastern Conference for years to come. But let's get into the video and let's see what they had to say. Kind of go on that one.
All right, Craig, let's get into the Habs after that huge win against the Sens last night. And specifically, I want to talk to you about Nick Suzuki because you tweeted during the game that Suzuki isn't just a number one center, he's an elite number one. That's quite a word, Craig. McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews. That's who I think of when talking about elite number one centers. Why do you believe Suzuki deserves this praise?
Well, what I would say about those guys that you just mentioned, they're superstar centers. And I'm certainly not saying that Nick Suzuki is a superstar center. And I use the designation of elite because he controls the game in every single area of the game, whether it be offensively, whether it be defensively. It doesn't matter where he is on the ice. He can have a material impact on the game that reflects in positive results, whether it be individually for whoever he's playing with, whether it be for the team. You think about Patrice Bergeron. That's who I think about when I watch Nick Suzuki. You wouldn't call Patrice Bergeron a superstar center. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And
I'll push back on that just a little bit. While Bergeron didn't have the offensive totals that guys like McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews will have offensively, he won a record-breaking amount of Selkies. So much you could probably call that the Bergeron Award for how fantastic he was as a two-way center. And he could also bury the biscuit as well. I think the term... I think if Suzuki can become a Bergeron, that's a beautiful thing for the Canadiens. Because Suzuki is a good two-way center. And when the team gets better around him, I think he'll be in more of those conversations. But I do believe in his own right Bergeron was a superstar. Was he the greatest goal scorer or playmaker of all time? No, but when he was on the ice, offensively and defensively, he was impactful and he made every single one of his teammates, better, and he made life very difficult for his opponents.
Nick Suzuki plays the same style of game as Patrice Bergeron. It's understated. It's not flashy. It doesn't hit you over the head with all his brilliance. But what he does is he beats you up with his brain. He beats you up with the subtleties and the nuances, as well as having a lot of high-end skill. And there's been this idea that, oh, Nick Suzuki isn't a number one center. And I say hogwash. He's a full elite number one center, and all you got to do is just watch him. You don't have to watch him a lot, just watch him a few times, and I think it'll become quite evident, just as it was with Patrice Bergeron.
Who's not calling Suzuki a good number one center? A genuine question there. Maybe I just don't see it a lot, but when I see him play, I mean, let me just kind of, before I go back to the video, I mean, last year, sorry, I kind of blanks it here because of my head on the screen. Last year, 82 games played, 33 goals, 44 assists for 77 points. That's a good year. The plus minus is not great, but the Canadiens roster has not been great around him. This year, 67 games played, 21 goals, 49 assists for 70 points. He will most likely have his career high in points this year. And, before that, 66, 61 points in 82 games played. Since going, becoming a Canadian, he's been really good. Sure, the first year, solid. Maybe that's where you could say, oh, maybe a second line center guy. But, To me, when it comes to Suzuki with his two-way game, he's just constantly improved every year. I think he's a center that most teams would love to have on their roster. I don't, unless I'm missing that conversation and people are saying that he's just a number two or he's not worth being a number one. But I really haven't heard that talk.
Yeah, Suzuki on pace for a career high 86 points. Now, fewer goals, but Craig, the plus minus has improved quite a bit. Has Suzuki, you think, sacrificed a bit of that offense for a style of hockey that's more conducive to winning?
Well, I've watched Nick Suzuki for a long time. Nick Suzuki, like Patrice Bergeron, like elite number centers, are always ready to sacrifice a little bit for the benefit of the team. No question, Nick Suzuki is of the same mindset.
Well, let's pivot to Lane Hutson. Seems like every night he's doing something special for the Habs as well. Now up to 53 points.
So I'll end it up there. And I mean, as for Hutson, I think Hutson should win Rookie of the Year, especially if he continues on this pace. One of the more difficult positions to play at the NHL level. And he's been absolutely tremendous for the Canadiens and has helped propel them back into playoff relevance. But as for Suzuki, I think some of the conversation, if it's indeed true that people don't view him as a great number one center, I mean, outside of a few names, I mean, who else do you take but Suzuki? I mean, most teams would love to have a guy like that, solid two-way guy, a guy that can produce points. He can score some goals. He had a 30-goal season last year. Sure, his goals are down a little bit, but he's still going to score 20-plus goals. He has some solid playmaking ability. I do worry a little bit about the Bergeron comparisons, because I think Bergeron, I don't know if we're just taking for granted, but he also did have a really good offensive side of his game as well. Just to make it seem like he didn't, is a little bit foolhardy. I mean, that's why some of the best players in the world always like to play with him on a line, just because how good he was offensively and defensively. But, I mean, does Suzuki have the capability to win a Selke? I absolutely believe it. I think he has it in him. And I think when the roster around him keeps maturing and keeps getting better, I think he'll probably be in those conversations more frequently. I like Suzuki. I do think he's an elite number one center. I think if you have him as your number one center in your organization, you are in a beautiful spot. And sure, maybe there's some names that will score far more goals and produce more points, like a guy like McDavid. But will they give you the same quality on the defensive side of things? Probably not. And I think Suzuki's, in a way, a great center to have, because he's going to give you some point production. Maybe he can flirt with a 90-point season at some point in his years and, really give you that offensive output. But even when he scores a lot of points, he's still going to lock things down on the other end. And as a center, that's the most important thing. Getting points is great. Playmaking is great. But do you take care of the responsibilities in your own end? And do you make your line mates around you better? Sure, those superstar players do make their line mates around them better as well. But I think Suzuki does the same thing. Maybe, sure, he's not going to score 140 points in a season. But if he gives you around 70-plus points throughout his prime, and he gives you good defensive effort and locks down the opponents, yeah, he's elite. Shit. I would love to have Suzuki on my team. I swear to God, hey, Canadiens fans, if you want to trade him, I'll trade you Elias Lindholm, right? I'll trade you Elias Lindholm for him. I swear to God, I'll trade him for him. But no, let me know your thoughts. Do you believe that Nick Suzuki is an elite number one center? Do you believe that he fits the bill in that number one C role? Or should the Canadiens try to make an improvement there? I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Appreciate if you drop a like, comment, subscribe. But if you don't, well, go yourself. See you in the next one.